If I could show you how your thoughts are quietly writing the story of your life, every victory, every failure, would you still allow fear to hold the pen? I remember a time in my life when everything felt out of control. My emotions, my reactions, my peace. I'd wake up already tired. Not from the day but from my thoughts. I was fighting invisible battles in my own mind. I blamed people, situations, bad luck, until one morning I realized the war was never outside of me. It was inside. My mind had become my enemy because I never trained it to be my ally. That day I decided, if I can control my mind, I can control my life. And from that moment forward, everything changed. Not instantly but gradually. Because when you learn to master your mind, you stop being a slave to circumstances and start becoming the creator of your destiny. Number 1. Your mind is the steering wheel of your life. Your mind is not just a tool, it is the silent captain steering the ship of your life through calm waters and violent storms alike. Every direction you move toward, every success or failure, every opportunity gained or lost, begins first as a thought. Most people spend their lives trying to change the external, their job, their relationships, their environment. Yet they never pause to change the inner world that drives every outer result. The truth is simple yet profound. You cannot live a positive, fulfilled, abundant life with a chaotic, fearful or self-sabotaging mind. Just like a car cannot move forward when the steering wheel is locked, you cannot move toward greatness while your mind is hijacked by negative thinking. The moment you take control of your thoughts, your direction changes. The moment you stop letting emotions, opinions and fear dictate your mental state, you begin to steer consciously toward the life you were meant to live. I once heard a story about a man named James, a construction worker from Chicago who grew up in poverty. His father was an alcoholic, his mother worked 3 jobs, and he was told his entire life that people like us don't make it far. Those words became the echo chamber in his head, repeating every time he dreamed of something better. He carried that belief like a shadow for years, until one freezing night, when he was driving home from a long shift, his car broke down in the middle of nowhere. Sitting there, hands trembling from the cold, he stared at his reflection in the rearview mirror, and broke down in tears. He whispered to himself, "I'm done living this way." That night wasn't about a broken car, it was about a broken mindset. James later said that moment was the first time he realized his real problem wasn't his job, his background or his bad luck. It was the way he thought about himself. From that night forward, he began a mental transformation. Every morning before work, he would look in the mirror and tell himself one truth: I am the driver, not the passenger. He started reading one page of a motivational book before heading to his shift. He began listening to audiobooks on discipline, focus and mindset instead of gossip or radio noise. Slowly his inner conversation changed, from I can't to I will. Within a few years he wasn't working on the construction site anymore, he was running it. And when asked years later what changed his life, James didn't say luck or opportunity. He said, the day I took control of my mind, everything else followed. That's the secret most people never discover. The external world is simply a mirror, reflecting the condition of your internal world. If your mind is filled with fear, you'll drive your life straight into anxiety. If it's filled with gratitude, you'll find beauty in every moment. The quality of your thinking determines the quality of your living. You are constantly giving your mind commands. I'm not enough. I can't do this. I always fail. And your mind obeys. It's like a GPS that follows your instructions without judgment. If you type in the wrong destination, it doesn't argue. It simply takes you there. So when you tell yourself you're stuck, your mind will find proof of that. But when you say I am capable, I am growing, I am becoming, your mind begins searching for evidence to support that. The great masters of thought, from Napoleon Hill to the Shaolin monks, all teach one eternal principle: control your mind, and you control your destiny. Because the mind, once trained, becomes a force of unimaginable power. It no longer reacts to life, it creates life. It no longer gets swayed by the noise, it listens to its own clarity. The one who learns to still the chaos within can walk through any chaos without. When you steer your mind with intention, you begin to feel a quiet confidence, the kind that comes from knowing you are no longer drifting through life, you are driving it. Imagine standing at the edge of a vast ocean. The waves are your circumstances, unpredictable, uncontrollable. The steering wheel in your hands is your mind. You can't stop the storm, but you can steer your way through it. You can't command the tide, but you can command your direction. The greatest tragedy is not the waves that hit us, It's the people who throw away the wheel and call it fate. The real power lies in understanding that your thoughts create momentum, and your momentum becomes your reality. So if life feels out of control right now, pause. Don't rush to fix the outside, fix the steering wheel. The roads may still be rough, the storms may still come, but when your hands are firmly on the wheel of your mind, you'll never lose your way again. Because the truth is this: no one can control what happens to you, but you can always control how you think about it. And that single decision to take command of your mind will change not just your direction, but your entire destiny. Number 2. The mind believes whatever you tell it, so feed it truth, not fear. The human mind is the most obedient servant, yet the most dangerous master. It doesn't question, it doesn't analyze, it simply believes what you repeatedly tell it. Whatever words you speak inwardly, with emotion, your mind accepts as truth and begins to shape your reality around it. This is why people who constantly say, "I'm unlucky," keep finding misfortune, and those who believe something great is always on its way, somehow attract opportunity after opportunity. The mind is a mirror, it reflects back what you project into it. If you feed it fear, it multiplies fear. If you feed it faith, it multiplies strength. What you whisper to yourself in the silence of your soul becomes the loudest voice in your destiny. Yet most people spend their entire lives unconsciously poisoning their own minds with thoughts that diminish their worth and destroy their potential. They talk themselves out of greatness before life even has a chance to give it to them. The mind believes whatever you tell it, so the real question is, what story are you feeding it every day? There was a young woman named Maria who grew up in a small town in Mexico, where dreams were often treated like luxuries only the rich could afford. Her family struggled with poverty. Her father left when she was 10, and her mother worked tirelessly cleaning houses to make ends meet. Every day, Maria heard people say, "Girls like us don't go far. Life is what it is, and just survive, don't dream." Those words wrapped around her mind like chains, and for years, she believed them. She was a bright student, yet she never applied for scholarships. She wanted to learn English, yet she convinced herself she wasn't smart enough. Fear disguised itself as logic, whispering, "Stay where you are, it's safer." Her mind had become a prison built from the opinions of others. One evening, after another long day at a factory job she hated, Maria sat on her bed, staring at an old notebook where she used to write her childhood dreams, to travel, to speak on stage, to build something meaningful. She hadn't opened that notebook in years. As she turned the faded pages, she found a line she had written as a little girl. "One day, I will tell my story to the world." Reading those words again broke something open inside her. She realized that the same voice that once told her she could was buried under years of lies that told her she couldn't. That night she made a decision that changed her life, to start feeding her mind with new beliefs, no matter how uncomfortable it felt. Every morning before work she would look in the mirror and say out loud, "I am capable, I am worthy, I am meant for more." At first it felt ridiculous, almost painful, but slowly something inside her began to shift. The more she repeated it, the more her mind began to believe it. 6 months later, Maria applied for an English language course, something she had always feared. A year later she started a small business teaching others how to communicate confident. 2 years later, she was speaking at local schools, telling young girls the same truth she once needed to hear. Your mind believes whatever you tell it, so tell it something powerful. Today Maria runs a non-profit helping women in her community build confidence through education and mindset training. When asked how she did it, she smiles and says, "I stopped feeding my fear, and I started feeding my faith." That's the transformation available to every one of us. The mind doesn't care whether what you feed it is true or false, good or bad. It simply takes it in and acts accordingly. So if you fill your mind with doubt, you will live in hesitation. If you fill it with belief, you will walk with purpose. This is not magic, it's the law of thought. The words you repeat become the lens through which you see the world. Your reality bends to your perception. You can either speak defeat into your life, or declare victory into existence. And the most powerful truth is that both begin with a single thought. You see, fear and faith are both invisible, but both demand belief. The difference is that fear believes in the worst possible outcome, while faith believes in the best. When you choose fear, your mind starts building a future you dread. When you choose faith, it builds one you can't wait to live. Every day, you're programming your mind, either consciously through positive intention, or unconsciously through old patterns. That's why your inner dialogue matters more than any motivational book, more than any advice from the outside world. Because no voice in this world is more powerful than the one inside your head that whispers, I can. So ask yourself, are you feeding your mind poison or power? Are you nourishing it with hope or starving it with doubt? Your thoughts are the seeds of your destiny. Plant carefully. When fear comes knocking, remind yourself that it's only as strong as the story you keep repeating. And when faith feels distant, remember you don't need to see the entire staircase. You only need to believe in the next step. Because once you start telling your mind the truth, that you are capable, that you are resilient, that you are enough, your mind will begin to move mountains to prove you right. That is the power of thought. That is the power of faith. That is the power of controlling what you choose to believe. Number 3. Emotional control is mental control. True power begins the moment you learn to master your emotions, instead of letting your emotions master you. The greatest battles are never fought with others. They're fought within the quiet chambers of your own mind. When anger rises, when fear whispers, when sadness feels endless, and when anxiety pulls you away from your peace. Emotional control is not suppression, it's transformation. It's the ability to feel everything, yet be ruled by nothing. To experience the chaos but still choose calm. Most people live as prisoners of their emotions. They let temporary feelings make permanent decisions. They let anger burn bridges that could have led to peace. And they let fear stop them from walking through doors meant for their growth. But when you learn to control your emotions, you begin to move through life like water, steady, flexible, yet unbreakable. You stop reacting to every wave, and instead, you rise with the tide. You become the calm eye within every storm. There's a story I once heard about a man named Daniel, a firefighter from New York, who had seen more loss and tragedy than most could ever imagine. During one rescue mission, he lost his closest friend, his partner, his brother in service, in a building collapse. That day shattered him. He blamed himself, replayed the scene over and over, and fell into a deep pit of guilt and rage. Every sound reminded him of that moment. He couldn't sleep. He couldn't smile. The fire that once gave him purpose had turned into the fire that consumed his. For years he wore a mask, showing bravery on the outside, while his mind drowned in chaos on the inside. He tried to numb the pain with work, with silence, with alcohol, but nothing worked. Until one night, he walked to the fire station roof, the place where he and his partner used to talk about life, and he finally broke down, crying for the first time in years. And in that moment of surrender, something shifted. He realized he had spent years trying to escape his emotions instead of facing them. Daniel decided to change one thing: how he responded to what he felt. He couldn't control what had happened, but he could control the meaning he gave. Instead of seeing himself as a man who failed, he chose to see himself as a man who still had a purpose, to live in honor of his fallen friend. He began meditating every morning before work, breathing through the pain instead of running from it. When anger came, he observed it. When sadness came, he welcomed it but didn't drown in it. Slowly, the noise in his mind began to quiet. His emotions were still there, but now he was steering them instead of being dragged by them. 2 years later, Daniel began speaking to new firefighters about emotional resilience, teaching them that courage is not the absence of emotion, but the mastery of it. When he tells his story now, he always ends with the same words: I stopped fighting my emotions when I realized they were trying to teach me peace. That is the essence of emotional control. Not to kill emotion, but to understand it, to listen to it, to learn from it, and then to rise above it. Because your emotions are signals, not sentences. They come to inform you, not define you. Anger often hides hurt. Fear often hides potential. Sadness often hides depth. But when you react without awareness, you let emotions cloud your judgment and dictate your choices. A moment of anger can destroy what took years to build. A moment of fear can rob you of opportunities meant for your growth. But when you pause, when you breathe, when you step back and observe rather than react, you reclaim your power. The most dangerous moment in any argument or challenge is not what happens to you but how fast you react to it. Emotional control gives you that sacred pause, that breath between the trigger and the response, and that is where true freedom lives. Think of the ocean. The surface is restless, full of waves and storms, but the deeper you go, the calmer it becomes. That's what emotional mastery looks like. On the surface, life will always move. People will disappoint you. Circumstances will test you. Things will not go your way. But deep within, you can still be still. That stillness is your strength. The world will always reward the one who can remain composed when everyone else loses control. Emotional control gives you clarity in chaos, strength in pain, and grace in the face of challenge. It allows you to act with wisdom, instead of impulse. It turns you from a reactor into a creator. When you can feel anger yet choose peace. When you can feel fear yet move forward anyway. When you can feel sadness yet still see hope. That's not weakness. That's mastery. That's when you know you've trained your mind to lead your emotions, not follow them. The ancient monks of the Shaolin Temple say, the one who conquers himself is mightier than the one who conquers 1,000 men in battle. Because self-mastery is the highest form of strength. Emotional control is not about never breaking, it's about learning how to rebuild yourself every time you do. So the next time you feel anger rising or fear creeping in, pause and remind yourself, this feeling is a wave, and I am the ocean. It may shake you but it cannot drown you. Breathe, observe, and let the emotion pass through you like wind through a mountain. You are not what you feel, you are the awareness behind it. The moment you understand that, you'll stop living at the mercy of your moods and start living at the command of your mind. And in that moment you'll realize the truth. To control your emotions is to control your mind. And to control your mind is to control your life. Number 4. Detach from your thoughts. You are the watcher, not the noise. There comes a moment in every person's life when they must learn the sacred truth. You are not your thoughts. You are the awareness behind them. You are the watcher, the silent observer who witnesses the storm without becoming it. Yet most of us live trapped in a mental hurricane, believing that every thought passing through our mind is a reflection of who we are. We identify so deeply with the noise that we forget the stillness beneath it. But the mind is like the sky, vast, open, infinite, and your thoughts are merely clouds drifting across it. Some are dark, some are light, some linger, some disappear quickly, but none of them define the sky itself. The problem is, most people chase the clouds instead of realizing they were the sky all along. Detachment from thought doesn't mean apathy or denial. It means awakening, realizing that thoughts are visitors, not rulers. They come, they go, and they only have the power you give them. Once you learn to separate yourself from the noise, you begin to experience a peace that cannot be shaken, no matter how loud your mind becomes. I remember reading the story of a man named Arjun, a software engineer from Bangalore, whose mind became his worst battlefield. He was successful on paper, good career, family, health. Yet inside, he was tormented by his thoughts. Every day, his mind flooded with what ifs. What if I lose my job? What if I fail? What if I'm not enough? He carried his fears into every room, every meeting, every silence. The more he tried to stop thinking, the louder his thoughts became. Sleep eluded him, joy felt foreign, and anxiety became his constant shadow. Doctors called it overthinking, but Arjun described it differently. It's like living in a room where the lights never turn off. One evening in complete exhaustion, he attended a local meditation session, recommended by a friend. He didn't expect much, he just wanted rest. The monk leading the session spoke only one sentence that changed his life. You are not your thoughts, you are the space they move through. At first he didn't understand, but as he sat in silence, he began to notice the endless stream of thoughts flowing through his mind. He saw how one thought triggered fear, another triggered hope, another guilt, and yet behind all of it, something within him stayed unchanged. That quiet awareness, that observer, had always been there, silently watching. For the first time in years, he realized that he didn't have to believe every thought his mind produced. He could simply watch them rise and fall like waves in the ocean. Over time, he began practicing detachment every day. When self-doubt appeared, instead of reacting, he would say, "Ah, there's that old thought again." When fear came, he would breathe and let it pass. Slowly, the grip of his thoughts began to loosen. Months later, his anxiety faded. Not because life became easier, but because he stopped identifying with the noise inside his head. Today, Arjun teaches mindfulness to corporate employees, helping others escape the mental prison he once lived in. When asked what changed him, he says, "I realized I am the sky, not the storm." This is the power of detachment, the shift from identification to observation. The mind produces between 60 to 70,000 thoughts a day, and not all of them deserve your attention. Thoughts are not commands. They are suggestions. They are clouds drifting across your inner sky, and it is your awareness that decides which ones to hold on to. The suffering begins when we start believing that every thought we think is true. A single fearful thought, if held onto, can grow into anxiety. A single critical thought can become a belief of unworthiness. But when you learn to watch them, to simply say, "There's a thought of fear," instead of "I am afraid," you create distance. And in that distance, peace is born. You begin to see that your thoughts are not reality, they are reflections. They come and go, but your consciousness, the watcher, remains eternal, calm, and untouched. Think of it this way. Your thoughts are like people walking through a busy train station. You are sitting on a bench, observing them pass. Some are loud, some quiet, some stay for a while, some leave immediately. You wouldn't get up and follow every stranger, so why follow every thought? The moment you stop chasing them, you realize that stillness was always available. Detachment doesn't mean you stop thinking, it means you stop drowning in your thoughts. You become the observer instead of the actor lost in the play. The moment you step into that awareness, you awaken a deeper intelligence. One that isn't reactive, fearful, or conditioned. You begin responding to life with clarity, not chaos. The greatest spiritual teachers, from Buddha to Eckhart Tolle, have all pointed to the same truth. Liberation begins when you disidentify from the mind. You realize that your thoughts are not enemies to fight, but guests to observe. You don't resist them, and you don't worship them. You just watch them come and go, like waves breaking gently against the shore. And suddenly, what once felt heavy begins to lighten. You stop judging yourself for every negative thought, and instead see it as a passing moment. You start to realize you were never broken. You were simply buried under noise. So the next time your mind begins to race, when overthinking tries to steal your peace, pause and breathe. Step back from the storm. Remind yourself, these are just thoughts. They are not me. Let them pass like clouds. The sky never fears the storm, because it knows the sun still shines behind it. You are that sky. You are the awareness behind every fear, every worry, every thought that passes. When you detach from the noise, you step into your power. Because the moment you realize you are the watcher, not the thoughts, not the emotions, not the chaos, you awaken to the truth that you've been free all along. Number 5. Focus is the mind's greatest weapon. Focus is not just a mental skill, it is the purest form of power the human mind can cultivate. Whatever you give your attention to expands, and whatever you neglect withers away. Focus is the difference between a wandering mind and a warrior mind, between drifting aimlessly and moving with purpose. The world we live in today is filled with distractions. Every sound, every screen, every notification is designed to steal fragments of your attention, until you no longer realize how fragmented you've become. But when you train your mind to focus, truly focus, you unlock a level of strength and clarity that separates the ordinary from the extraordinary. Because focus is energy, and where your energy flows, your life grows. The ability to control your attention, to hold it steady on what truly matters, is what separates those who merely dream from those who manifest. The truth is, you can have immense talent, deep passion, or even great luck. But without focus, all of it dissolves into scattered potential. Focus is the bridge between intention and accomplishment. There's a real story about a man named Eric Thomas, now known as the hip-hop preacher, whose life embodies this truth. Before he became one of the most powerful motivational speakers in the world, Eric was a homeless teenager, wandering the streets of Detroit. He had dropped out of high school, slept in abandoned buildings, and lived each day just trying to survive. His life was chaos, no direction, no guidance, no structure. But one morning after sleeping behind a fast food restaurant, he heard a pastor say something that pierced through the fog in his mind. You can't start the next chapter of your life if you keep rereading the last one. Those words hit him like thunder. That night, as he sat under a flickering streetlight, he made a vow to focus his entire being on building a different life, no matter how long it took. That single decision to focus changed everything. Eric didn't have resources or connections, but he had focus. He began reading every book he could find, waking up at 3 a.m. to study and work, using the early hours when the world was silent to sharpen his mind. He got his GED, then went to college, and eventually earned his PhD. His rise wasn't powered by privilege or luck. It was powered by relentless focus. While others were distracted by excuses, he was obsessed with purpose. Every obstacle became a stepping stone because his attention never drifted from his mission. Years later, when people asked him what the secret was, he said, most of you want to succeed as bad as you want to sleep. But when you want it as bad as you want to breathe, that's when you'll be successful. That is the essence of focus. It is not a talent, it is a discipline. It's the ability to say no to 100 temptations, so you can say yes to one truth. When you focus your mind, you become unstoppable. The sun has enough power to burn the world, but it only sets things on fire when you focus its light through a lens. Your mind works the same way. Scattered thoughts produce scattered results. Focused thoughts ignite transformation. Every master, every monk, every leader you've ever admired had one thing in common: they learned how to direct their attention like a laser beam. They weren't born calm. They trained their minds to silence the noise and return to the task again and again, and that repetition, that consistency, forged their greatness. But the enemy of focus isn't always distraction from outside. Often, it's the chaos within, the doubts, the fears, the endless what-ifs that pull your attention in 1,000 directions. The secret to mastering focus is mastering presence, being fully here, in this moment, doing one thing with your whole heart. Focus means you stop multitasking your purpose. It means you stop watering a dozen seeds and wondering why none of them grow. It means you pour yourself into one pursuit until it blossoms. Because focus is not just about doing less, it's about doing what truly matters more deeply. Imagine your mind as a garden. Every thought is a seed, and your focus is the sunlight. If you constantly move the sunlight from one patch to another, nothing grows strong. But if you keep the light steady, if you give one area your consistent energy, something powerful begins to bloom. Life rewards the focus. The universe itself bends in favor of those who know what they want and refuse to look away. Focus is faith in motion. It's the act of believing that what you give your attention to is worth building, even when results are slow, even when no one notices, even when the noise of life tries to pull you off course. So ask yourself, where is your focus right now? Are you chasing too many things, hoping one of them will bring you peace? Are you letting your attention be hijacked by every notification, every opinion, every moment of doubt? You can't hit a target you don't aim at, and you can't build a future you're not focused on. Every time you bring your attention back to your vision, you strengthen your inner power. Every time you choose purpose over distraction, you rise higher in your own consciousness. That's how champions are built, not in the absence of noise, but in their ability to stay focused despite. Focus is the greatest weapon of the mind, because it turns chaos into clarity, potential into performance, and dreams into destiny. The moment you learn to direct your thoughts toward what truly matters, and guard that focus like sacred fire, you become unstoppable. The world will still try to pull you away. Fear will whisper. Temptation will distract. Comfort will seduce. But your focus will keep you anchored to your purpose. Because in the end, life doesn't reward the most talented or the most privileged. It rewards the most focused. And when your focus becomes stronger than your fear, that's the moment your life begins to transform forever. Number 6. Stillness is strength. There is a power that exists beyond noise, beyond ambition, beyond the endless chase for more, and that power is stillness. The world today moves at a pace that never allows us to catch our breath. We are constantly stimulated, distracted, and pulled in 1,000 directions, mistaking movement for progress and noise for purpose. But what most people don't realize is that the greatest strength a human being can develop is the ability to be still, to quiet the chaos of the mind and listen to the voice that speaks beneath it. Stillness doesn't mean weakness, and it's not about inaction. It is about mastery, the kind of mastery that allows you to stay calm in the storm, to think clearly when others panic, and to respond with intention instead of impulse. When your mind becomes still, it becomes powerful, because clarity begins to replace confusion, and peace begins to replace pressure. The man or woman who can remain still, while the world falls apart around them, that's the one who cannot be defeated. There's a story I once heard of a Japanese swordsman named the Miyamoto Musashi, one of the greatest samurai who ever lived. In his youth, he was consumed by rage, ego, and the desire to prove himself. He fought duel after duel, winning every one, but his heart was in turmoil. Even victory couldn't silence the noise inside him. One day, after years of endless fighting, Musashi retreated to a cave, completely alone. For months, he meditated, reflected, and wrote about the art of combat and the art of being. In that silence, he discovered something no opponent could teach him, that real power doesn't come from conquering others, but from conquering yourself. When he emerged from the cave, he was no longer the same man, calmer, wiser, and infinitely more powerful. His stillness had become his weapon. This story is not just history, it is truth disguised as philosophy. In our own lives, we are constantly at war, not with swords, but with stress, fear, and uncertainty. Every day is a battle between peace and panic, clarity and confusion. But the solution is the same. Go inward, not out. I remember a personal moment when I was on the edge of breaking down. My mind was spinning with anxiety, deadlines, and responsibilities. My body was present, but my spirit was somewhere else, drowning in thought. One morning I sat by a lake at dawn, not to meditate, not to pray, but simply to sit. For the first time in months, I allowed silence to exist without fighting it. The world around me was still, the gentle sound of water, the wind moving through trees, the sun rising like a quiet promise. In that stillness, I felt something shift. I realized I didn't need to control everything. I just needed to be. That single morning didn't erase my problems, but it transformed my perspective. I learned that silence is not empty, it is full of answers. It's where your intuition lives, where your real strength hides, waiting for you to stop running and listen. The truth is, most people are terrified of silence, because it reveals who they really are. We fill our lives